Good evening, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayishlach, Tavshin Pei Gimel, and we will start from the beginning. This is Parak Lamed Beis, chapter 32, Pasuk Daled, verse 4. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav el Esav achiv. Yaakov sent messengers ahead of him to Esav, his brother, Arza Seir Sedei Edom, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom. He commanded the messengers, saying, so shall you say to my master, to Esav, so says your servant Yaakov. In Lavan Garti, I had been living with Lavan, and that's where I remained until now. And I acquired oxen, donkeys, sheep, servants, maidservants, and I am sending to make note to tell my master, to find favor in your eyes. So Yaakov is extending his greetings of peace. Yaakov wants to be at peace with his brother. The messengers returned to Yaakov, saying, we have come to your brother, to Esav. He's also coming to greet you. And 400 men with him. Yaakov became very fearful and distressed. And he divided up his entire camp into two camps. And the next pasuk says, if Esav comes and he basically has to battle one camp, the other camp will be able to escape. So the fact that Yaakov became very fearful when the message came that Esav is coming with 400 men, that was understood that Esav was coming to fight with Yaakov, to make war with Yaakov. And therefore Yaakov was very afraid. Rashi says he was very afraid lest he get killed, and he was very distressed if he's going to have to kill others in battle. But I want to focus on the fact that the pasuk says Yaakov was fearful. And as Rashi says, Yaakov was fearful means he was fearful for his life. And the question is that why was Yaakov fearful? In last week's parsha, when Yaakov has the dream of the ladder, what does Hashem tell him? Hashem says, I will be with you, I will guard you, and I will bring you back. So Hashem has promised Yaakov that he's going to survive, he's going to make it back. So that means if Hashem promised him he's going to return back, it means he's going to come back to the land of Canaan, to his father, that's a promise that he's going to make it back. If Hashem promised him he's going to make it back, what would he be fearful about? That's a question that's asked by that's actually the Talmud's question as to why Yaakov was fearful. Hashem promised him, I'm going to guard you, I'm going to bring you back. What's he afraid of? So there are a number of answers that are given. But the answer that I want to share with you tonight is the answer given by the commentary of Abarbanel. And his approach is actually not the same as the Talmud's approach, but this is how he approaches it. And this approach is very fundamental. It's a very fundamental principle, a very fundamental idea. So the Abarbanel writes, Yaakov's fear of Esav was not because Yaakov did not believe in Hashem's promises. Because his heart certainly was. He was batuach. He trusted in Hashem. He trusted in Hashem. Hashem had promised him, and he trusted that Hashem would fulfill that promise and guard him. But his fear was the fear of a true warrior. When a warrior is about to enter battle, he's going to be afraid of the fact that he may die, and he's going to have a reaction to the danger. But because of the goal, or because of the purpose of why he's battling, he's ready to put his life on the line. Okay. He mentions the philosopher writes in what's called the book of traits. If a person goes out to war, and he goes out to war thinking he's going to be fine, he's not going to die, that's not called a warrior. The Bible now is saying a warrior is someone that when he goes to battle, we think like, the strong warrior, the macho warrior is the one that goes to battle. He's not afraid of battle. He's not afraid. And the Bible now says, no, a true warrior is afraid. Just that he gets over that fear. He gets beyond that fear because he has a higher calling. He has a higher purpose, a purpose that says, yes, I'm afraid of death, but I'm still willing to put my life on the line for this higher calling, for this higher purpose. And if that's not that's not a warrior's approach, the warrior just like he's somehow or another he's so confident he's not going to die or doesn't care if he's going to die. That's not a warrior. And he brings another example. Let's say a person gives a lot of charity because money means nothing to him. Money has no meaning to him. He's not called generous. He didn't do this because he chose the proper way. He couldn't care less about money, so he gives it away. What's the big deal? So there, you can't be called generous if money doesn't mean anything to you. Generous means the money means something to you. It's difficult. You want to keep it, but you give it away for a higher calling. A warrior should be concerned and afraid of dying. Nonetheless, he's ready to choose death. He's ready to put his life on the line because of the higher calling, the higher goal. And for the generous person who loves money, he wants to keep his money. But he gives it away again because there's a higher purpose that he knows of and that he lives by. So that's called a generous person. Meaning there's nothing special, right? If you're not afraid, or something is not bothering you, or you're not challenged, then you don't really deserve too much praise for what you're accomplishing. Because what's the big deal? If you don't care about money, what's the big deal if you give it away? If you don't care about your life or somehow or another, you're so convinced that you're going to survive. So again, what's the big deal? It's only when you actually have the difficulty and you're, again, in the case of the warrior, he's afraid of death. Nonetheless, he's ready to give up his life for his higher calling. That's a true warrior. Says the Barbanel, Yaakov. This was the same idea by Yaakov. If Yaakov would have had no fear from Esav that Esav was going to kill him or kill out his family, if he would now approach Esav, that wouldn't now show that he trusts, he puts his trust in Hashem and in Hashem's promises to him. He's going there because what's the big deal? He's my brother, he loves me, and therefore I have nothing to worry about. But now that he realizes that Esav hates him still, so now Yaakov's emotion reacted to that. His natural emotion reacted to that. He saw what was going on and he was afraid. With all this, his seichel, that means his intellect, his knowledge, his understanding, that is supposed to be leading or controlling his emotional reaction, which is the appropriate thing for any person of high character. It now, so to speak, fights back against the fear. This ametz v'halach likras achiv, and he went ahead and he was confident. He strengthened himself and he confidently went to greet his brother. That is truly a person who can be called a believer in the prophecy, and when it puts trust in Hashem's promises to him. The point of the Abarbanel, he's going to explain more, is Yaakov's fear was natural. It was natural. It was normal. It was what any person in that situation would do. But the point is that, but that's not a contradiction to bitachon. That's not a contradiction to his trust in Hashem and Hashem's promises and his belief in his promises. Because you have the reaction, you see the situation in front of you, you have the reaction, and you react. You're afraid. What's the real question is, what's next? What's next should be that knowing that Hashem made this promise to you, that now tells you, okay, I'm afraid, but I'm going to get beyond that fear. I'm not going to let that fear hold me back, but rather I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go forward confidently. That's not a contradiction to what Yaakov did to save himself, to prepare his camp, to send a gift, to get ready for war. Yaakov is not relying on miracles and doing nothing. But with all that, Yaakov's fear is not a contradiction to the fact that he had his trust in Hashem and that he trusted Hashem's promises. Just that his fear is a natural reaction to a situation in front of him. And when you have that natural reaction, but you overcome it, or you move and you control yourself and you move forward confidently because you put your trust in Hashem, and in Yaakov's case, the promise, that's called bitachon, that's called trusting. That's not a contradiction to believing what Hashem promised him. And he continues, another example. He sees a beautiful woman that is forbidden to him from the Torah. The Torah forbids him to marry this woman. He sees her, and what happens? He gets it. He craves her. He becomes desirous of her because that is his natural physical reaction. But his mind, his intellect, knowing that has a desire to follow the Torah, that what he knows intellectually will not allow him now to run after her and do what's wrong. Even that's what he wants to do. He's going to stay away. Now, let's say there's no question. Let's say he would see her and he couldn't care less. He'd have no desire whatsoever. There'd be no merit in staying away from her because of the fact that if you don't have a desire, what's the big deal? But it's not unnatural. He sees her. He has a desire. What's going to control him? What's going to control him is his intellect that knows that there's a higher calling. Therefore, you know why Yaakov became afraid? That was a natural reaction, a natural physical reaction, natural emotional reaction. His trust came because intellectually he knew to trust in Hashem's promises. Because if, let's say, Yaakov didn't trust, Yaakov became so fearful that he lost his trust in Hashem, or he lost his trust in Hashem's promises. So what would he have done? He would have found other possibilities. To run away, or he runs somewhere fortified to protect himself. And he would send a message to Yitzchak, pleading with him to speak to Esav, that Esav shouldn't kill him. Meaning Yaakov prepares, but he's going to meet Esav. He's not running away from Esav. He's going to meet up with Esav, and they're going to see what happens. But if he was really afraid to the point that he didn't trust in Hashem's promise to him, then he would have run away right now. He would have ran back to Laban maybe. He would have found somewhere fortified to protect himself. He would have contacted his father to speak to his brother to lay off. He didn't do that. He didn't bother with all that. What did he do the night before? He went to sleep. He went to sleep the night before. He wasn't afraid of Esav. And he went to greet him because he trusted in Hashem and his promises. This, he says, is the true way to answer this question, to explain Yaakov's fear. He says, I'll give you another very common example that relates to this. A person, let's say, knows, who is ill. He's got a serious stomach ailment. And he knows that he can take this medicine that's going to cure him. It's going to relieve him. He knows that when he takes this, he really needs a diuretic that's going to clean him out. He knows it's going to heal him, and he's going to feel better. Nonetheless, when he takes that medication, he is not happy. He's afraid. Apparently, this medicine, right, is going to have a very uncomfortable reaction. He knows he's going to go ahead, it's going to make him better, but it's not going to be a pleasant experience at all. So he's about to take that medicine. What's he going to do? Say, oh, this is great. This is going to heal me. Chugs it down, no problem. That's not true. He knows it's going to heal him. Nonetheless, his immediate natural reaction is, oh my gosh, what is going to be here? This is going to be horrible. This is going to be a horrible experience, and it's going to be. But he does it anyway because he knows what he has to do. The fear is not a contradiction to the truth. It's not a contradiction to what he has to do as long as it doesn't impede him, as long as the fear doesn't stop him. This was Yaakov's reaction according to his nature. And then his trust and his faith in Hashem is according to his intellect, and his faith in Hashem and in his promises. And because of the fact that Yaakov put his trust in Hashem and his promises, Hashem didn't have to go ahead and strengthen him and say anything more to him. All right. So the point of the Abarbanel here, something very, very fundamental, and that is when a person is supposed to act properly. That is not a contradiction to having first, let's call it a negative reaction, whether it be when a person is facing a challenge and he's put his trust in Hashem, or he's facing a challenge because he's being tempted to something. At the end of the day, as human beings, we have reactions. And we're going to have a reaction if we have to face a challenge that's a danger to our life. We're going to experience fear. If there's something that's tempting us, we're going to have a craving. We're going to get full of desire. The next thing is, though, with what we know, our intellect knows that there's a higher calling. There's something better than all this. That is now going to be the means by which we control ourselves. That's going to be the means by which we either control our temptation or that we don't allow the fear to paralyze us. So did Yaakov have trust in Hashem? He certainly did. Because Hashem promised him, I'm going to take care of you. He trusted that. He believed in that. But that's not a contradiction to first reacting naturally. He knows Esav is coming with a huge army to fight a battle with him. The initial reaction is going to be fear. But right after that comes what Yaakov knows is the higher calling, the truth, which is that Hashem has promised to protect him, and he's going to be protected. So he first has the reaction of fear, and then he has his trust in Hashem, and he moves forward. The person who has a forbidden craving, he's going to have it, he's going to experience it, but with his intellect, he's going to control himself. So whenever we talk about having a proper control of ourselves, whether it be our trust in Hashem, whether it be self-control from something that's forbidden, we're not doing something wrong when we first feel a challenge, when we first feel something that's against that trust in Hashem, or we first feel something that's against that self-control. There's nothing wrong with that. That's natural. That's a natural reaction. And there's nothing wrong with that. The question is, what do you do next? What's the next step? Do you now allow that fear to paralyze you, or do you move forward? And not just move forward, according to how much trust you have, you'll move forward confidently, which is what a person has to strive for. But that he first has a reaction of fear, that's normal. Nothing wrong with that. And if you don't have a reaction with fear, if you're not afraid, if you just don't care, you're just not afraid, or this thing is just not desirous to you, then what you do afterwards isn't really that praiseworthy because it's not a big deal. The true person who has trust in Hashem is fearful, and he still has trust. He moves forward, and the fear doesn't paralyze him. And he moves forward with confidence according to how much trust he has. A person has a desire for something that's forbidden. That's natural. Now you have to use your seichel. You got to use your intellect. You got to know what the higher calling is now to control that. But there's nothing wrong. But things. That's the process. You have a natural reaction, which is normal, and then the question is, what do you do with that? And if you have a natural reaction and then you do the right thing, that's praiseworthy. That is praiseworthy. And therefore, again, very fundamental principle that when it comes to so many things of our observance of Torah, of following the word of Hashem, if our first initial reaction is not that, that's natural. We're human beings. We're physical human beings. The challenge is, what do we do next? If we're afraid of something, then we put our trust in Hashem to move forward. Are we going to be afraid? We're going to be afraid. We're human beings. We're afraid. But we apply the trust that we have in Hashem to move forward, to act properly. Are we going to have desires? Yes, we're going to have desires. But again, our intellect will tell us to follow the higher calling. So the initial reaction, there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. The question is, what do you do next? And if with that natural reaction, you do the right thing, that is truly praiseworthy. That is where the true reward lies. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you.
What do you think to that?